Governor Morrisey, it's such an honor to be in your home in the governor's mansion here in West Virginia. Thank you so much for having us.
Lyndsay, it's great to see you again, and it's such an important time here in West Virginia, and I'm glad you made the trip.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. You know, this is such a beautiful state. I drove up here to see you, but one of the things that really surprised me in preparing to speak with you is all the first that West Virginia has, and some things that aren't so great. The first in obesity, the first in diabetes. But now you are the first governor in the nation to sign sweeping legislation to ban 7 different food dyes in foods here in West Virginia, and then also 2 preservatives. Why was this so important for you?
Well, I think it's really important that West Virginia prioritizes public health because you're right, we're last in a lot of the categories that really matter when you look at where we stand on obesity, on diabetes, on congestive heart failure, on cancer. We're leading the way, and yet we know that we can change a lot of that through changing the habits that we have. And so over the last few months, I've been giving a lot of thought to the different kind of pillars of how West Virginia can actually improve its health and well-being. One of them, of course, starts with what you were talking about, kind of getting the crap out of the foods, right? Because people don't know what they're putting to their bodies every single day, and substances that are not legal in other parts of the world and that have demonstrable problems in terms of ADHD and for other types of diseases. You say, well, let's get those out of the food system. But then let's go further as well. Let's modify how SNAP works and make sure that it's functioning much more on nutrition. Let's get people to work. That's why one of the announcements we made last Friday was on having all able-bodied people, with very limited exceptions, getting to work. And then, of course, let's get people out to exercise, because we know that's an inherent good. And we're excited because I think the reaction we've had just in the last few days on the exercise side of the equation alone has been off the charts.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because you have said you're not a fitness guru. You made that announcement, but that you want to lead the way in making West Virginia safe and healthy. What are you specifically doing to ensure that that happens?
Absolutely. So first, I think I can look every West Virginian in the eye and say, I can relate to you and some of the challenges that you have because I'm having them myself. And this comes from a perspective that I used to be very, very active, and I played college sports. I used to run a lot, I bike a lot. I was all over physical fitness, and this was a huge thing. And then as time goes on, you're a lawyer, you're practicing, you're working around the clock, you get involved. I was the state attorney general for 12 years, and pretty soon the pounds start packing on, and you're not even really paying attention because you're so focused on other things in life that your body goes by the wayside. So I think it's important that when you have that history, you stand up and say, look, I'm far from perfect, but I'm going to do my best to try to step up every day. And that's why we came up with this Mountaineer Mile. So we're asking everyone in West Virginia to step up and walk at least a mile every day. And we're going to be unveiling a plan for that so people across the state in every single county can participate. We have beautiful state parks. We're going to try to build it out to the parks as well. And then people get to see that their governor takes it seriously as well. And I'm going to try to do that. I'm in now day 4 of the process. So day 3, we've hit our marks. Okay. And so we're good. You know, we've been over 10,000 steps the last couple of days, and I'm going to keep going at it really hard. And I've always been the type of person, when I put my mind to it, that good things happen. But I also know it's not easy, that you go for 30 years where you're not doing the things that you really should be doing. You can't just turn it around on the dime. So I'm excited about it because I've gotten so much good response from people who know that this is just net positive. It has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with better public health. If we get people out, we get people active, and ultimately dropping some weight, that's going to lead to better conditions in diabetes and obesity and all those other things. And it's the right thing to do.
It's refreshing to see a leader of a state leading by example here and being honest with its people, Governor. I do want to talk about this bill a little bit more. Yeah. You are going up against ultimately these huge giants, these food manufacturing companies. how are you going to get them to pay attention? Because you are a smaller state.
Right.
Is this enough to get them to change course?
Look, I always viewed that this is the first step of many, and that this is going to foster a national discussion because given the nature of the food delivery and supply channel, that this is something that's over time likely to occur on the national level. But it helps when you have a state step up and make a difference. And I think you're going to see other states follow suit as well. So it's just one step of many, because to do this the right way, it's likely needs to happen on the national level. I mean, the FDA has certain sets of authorities and the supply channel works nationally. So I view this as step one, but I think you're going to expect to see other states do it. If West Virginia can do it, why can't other states do it? That to me is how we effectuate change. And for a state, there are a lot of ways that you can be relevant. You can do things that affect your own borders, but you can also lead by example to develop a confederation of states that want to work together to change national policy. And that's certainly what we're trying to do here.
Talk a little bit about the timeline, because this bill doesn't go into effect until 2028.
Right.
Is that timeline in hopes that these food manufacturing companies would actually change their ingredients, or is it for the state to get up to speed?
I think it's a couple things. One, a lot of people were concerned about the timeline. I've always thought that this is going to be something that gets addressed at the national level, so that gives people a little bit of time, but it also enables folks like Secretary Kennedy and others to step up and work to negotiate something with them, because if you have that federal scheme, then that's going to obviate the need for a lot of what we're doing here. So, but that takes time. Systems don't change overnight. So it just is reflecting of the fact that you can't just press a button and automatically everything changes.
One thing you actually are doing that is going to be swift action is removing these food dyes and preservatives from school lunches starting August 1st. Yeah. Are you concerned about that going into effect? How is the education system responding?
Look, I spoke to our superintendent and I spoke to other people, and I think at the end of the day, I had some concerns about that initial timeline. And then what happened is a lot of people said, look, we think we can do it. If they think that we can do it, hey, that's great, and we do it sooner. But, we'll see if there are any problems. We're going to monitor them along the way. We're going to make sure there are no untoward consequences that happen. But I think it's great because our kids are our most vulnerable, and that's who we want to protect. And as you'll see when we talk about SNAP and other issues, I think you want to make sure you're protecting the health of your children more than anything else. When people make stupid decisions when they're adults, that's one thing. But we can't have our kids make stupid decisions up front because they don't know better.
Talk a little bit more about the SNAP decision. You asked for a waiver from Secretary Kennedy and from the federal government to remove anybody who is on this program from being able to purchase soda. Why was that so important to you?
Well, a couple things. First, I think that as you're seeing what's happening on the national level, that there's a close review of all the spending that's going on. We look and we see that a soda has no nutritional value. And so when I look and see that the taxpayers are subsidizing soda and it's incorporated as an entitlement under that program, that struck me as being odd because it's supposed to be called the SNAP program, and the N stands for nutrition. And so when you have a scenario where there's no nutrition that's being provided, that's a little bit worrisome. And quite frankly, I would go even further that while we're taking SNAP out and that allows for healthy bundles to happen, incentivize good food, meats and healthy produce, vegetables, fruits, I think the other thing that we always want to be cognizant of is we could over time save money from this as well, because the ultimate goal is to get people better in the head and in the heart and help themselves get better. And that might mean reductions in the total number of people that may need this as well over the long run, right? Over the long run, you try to get people off Medicaid, you try to get people off SNAP, back into the private sector, because that's the best way to be.
Let's talk a little bit about how West Virginians are responding to these measures, because I'm sure there's some people who may be a little bit frustrated that items that they love, that are on the shelves every day, will soon be disappearing. What are you hearing about that, and how do you plan to address that?
So I think it's important for people, and it's a great question, because we did not prohibit soda. People can go have soda. All this says is the taxpayers are not subsidizing the soda, because if it's a nutrition program, the taxpayers shouldn't be paying for something that's not nutritious. So that's a really big distinction. So that way there's not a concern of it's not going to be in the store. But when it comes to taxpayer subsidization and entitlements, it shouldn't be part of the mix. So I think overall, when people learn that, people are going to be very comfortable with it, because they know that they can still have access to it if they want it, but the federal government's not going to pay for it.
And what about these things that have the food dyes in them or the preservatives?
Well, I think that's a different scenario, because that's out in 2028, and that gets back to the effort to tie this together on a federal side, where we're going to make sure that those scenarios are done and coordinated across the country. That this was step one. It's facilitating a dialogue. And I think you're going to see broader changes, and West Virginia is going to fit with that nationally. That's what I think is going to happen there.
You are the trailblazer in this scenario. You're the first governor to do it. How many states do you need, do you think, to jump on board to actually make a difference here?
Look, I think we're going to start to see a lot of states step up. The reality is that after Secretary Kennedy came into West Virginia the other day, I know that I talked to Secretary Kennedy that night after he had left, and he said that he's getting a ton of calls from different governors, that they're eager to be the next one up, the second one up, the third one up. I think that's great. And so, and I'm eager to work with any governor and people across the country to make this happen, because this shouldn't just be a Mountaineer Mile for West Virginia. It should be a Mountaineer Mile for America. And if we could light a match and get people going, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I believe there's up to 20 other states who have said that they may be interested in this type of measure.
I think that's right. And I've talked to some of my Republican colleagues who have expressed interest, and this shouldn't be a Republican issue. Republicans, Democrats, if you care about public health, if you care about having the taxpayers not subsidize non-nutritious items, this should be for you.
You know, and that's really fascinating, Governor, because you saw that during the election, that this really was this Make America Healthy Again. It really did seem to be a bipartisan issue. Young families specifically concerned about the future for their children and what is in our foods, what these food manufacturing companies are putting in. You know, it seems like food manufacturing companies have really taken advantage of certain loopholes to put these additives in, to put these preservatives in. Do you feel like that there should be a penalty on the federal level for them if they continue to do this?
I think that there's going to be a balance in terms of getting the supply channel and getting the systems up in place. And I'm going to be a strong voice for getting the crap out of the food, right? So the quicker we can do that, the better, because we know that there's an impact. I'm open to thinking about how we can get this done, and I'm not going to rule things out. I also want to make sure that we're not penalizing unintentional behavior. You know, we had the Grandma's Bake Sale amendment that came up in West Virginia, and that came up because, you know, unintentionally some of the first draft would have made it that grandma goes to another state, brings ingredients back, they could be penalized. You know, we don't want to do this the wrong way. I think this is meant to be very reasonable. It's meant to just shine a spotlight on all the crap that's in the food and say, get it out of there. And we're not going to be too patient with them, but we're going to be realistic. And so rather than do it via threats, it's better if everyone comes together and develops that federal standard.
There was some fierce opposition to this law being put into place, specifically by different lobbyist organizations. Even the CEO of the American Beverage Association saying this, I want to read it. He said, West Virginia families will face higher food prices and a scarcity of available products in stores because this law effectively outlaws, he says, 60% of grocery store items. Some people saying, Governor, that this could double the cost of food. How do you address those concerns?
Look, I think you're always going to see scare tactics from different people, but that's not going to happen. And what we know is that a lot of these products, we start to look and compare them, and you see that they're just slightly different in other places. And this, with a slight modification, they already know what the ingredients can and should be. But they can make that modification without much of a change. I think the bigger thing that we're going to see, and this is why the starting date is set at 2028, is that as you start to see more states come online, then they'll realize that they can't keep doing the things the way they've always been done. They have to clean it up. So I don't see that happening at all. And in fact, you always have people that, you know, the sky is falling, everything's going bad. But I think this is the first step. And if I were those companies, I would want to sit down with folks on the federal level pretty darn quickly in order to come up with a federal standard.
Have you heard from any of these food companies reach out to you so far?
I have. I mean, they come up to me. I try to meet with anyone, right? I mean, people have the right under the First Amendment to petition to redress their grievances. I take that seriously, so I listen to what's on their mind. I listen to anyone that comes in, but I just thought it was important to take this step because that allows us to have a broader dialogue nationally, which I think is really important.
Do they seem open to making these changes?
I think they're going to be over time because once they see that there are a number of states that are stepping up and there's a patchwork effect, I think that they know that they're going to want to have a broader national standard.
What is next for West Virginia? This is step one for you all, but as we were mentioning in the beginning, there's so many things that on the health level need to be addressed. So what else is on your agenda for that?
Couple things. First, I think we have these 4 pillars that we talked about in terms of getting the crap out of the food, getting people to work. I think that hasn't gotten enough attention, but SNAP, we need to have all able-bodied people who are able to work. They need to go to work. That hasn't always been the case in West Virginia in the past, so that's important too, because if you're working, you're more active, and quite frankly, if you're getting taxpayer benefits, you actually should make sure that you're working too. The third, of course, deals with ensuring that taxpayers are not subsidizing soda, and we're putting in place these incentives for healthy bundles, healthy foods. And then the fourth piece is this exercise regimen. I think what you're going to see in the upcoming weeks and months ahead is that people are going to shift from the exercise side, which I think needs to continue, and I think we're going to be developing systems where people can track their miles, track their counts, and then go to all of us, including me, have to drop a few pounds, shed those pounds, and get ready and get ourselves healthy so we can live longer, spend time with our friends and our family into the future. I think that's what it's all about, doing things that matter. And West Virginia is going to lead the way on that. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. I can tell you that after you were once an athlete and then that falls away, I'm hopeful that I can make it through. I don't have some of the challenges. I've got to make sure my body stays in good form, but I'm in for the challenge, and it's good.
Governor, I do got to ask you because it got a lot of attention over the weekend. Secretary Kennedy was here with you in the state last week for an event where you said that you would ask him to be your trainer.
I said, "You look like you ate Governor Morrisey." He's invited me to be his personal trainer. And I am going to put him on a really rigorous regimen. And we're going to put him on a carnivore diet. We're going to make him raise your hand if you want Governor Morrisey to do a public weigh-in once a month.
Did you agree to that?
No, listen, I said that might have been a bit more than I bargained for. But I will say this, I was down in Florida and I spent a bit of time with him and with a number of other people. And I was watching him going to the ocean and working out every day. And I was like, wow, this guy's really focused. He's 70 and he's doing this and he's in great shape. And once again, from a perspective of someone who was once in really good shape, I know that would be pretty cool to kind of get back to it. So we've just been joking about it over the months of, hey, maybe you could be the trainer. And I was joking that I'm a major renovation project. So it's all in good fun. I didn't take any of that the wrong way. I was happy that he came in to West Virginia, that we're kicking off this big initiative, because this can go viral for our state, for our country, and I'm proud that West Virginia is stepping up.
What else do you need from Secretary Kennedy on this front to ensure the safety of West Virginians?
I think a couple things. We're going to be working with Secretary Kenny, with Secretary Rollins, obviously the Agriculture Department. She's been very supportive as well. She's great. Trump, by the way, has just a dynamic group of people in these cabinet spots. So it's been fun to work with them and develop policies that really help our country. I think we're going to be looking at how we finalize these SNAP waivers, because I announced the intent to file a waiver, but now we're in the process of putting that together. And obviously the sooner we can put it together and get it in and approved, that's going to make a big difference. And then we want to just continue to shine the spotlight on all of these disease states and take steps to better address them. Our medical system today has less been focused on getting people healthy in the mind and in the body, and it's been more focused on what happens to treat diseases at the back end. That's not ideal. It's important that we start to look at these up front and then analyze how best to treat these diseases or the symptoms before you get to these diseases at the outset. And I think the more we can start thinking about it, that leads to broader questions about how healthcare is delivered in our country. And as a former healthcare lawyer, I care a lot about that. So I think this is going to be the beginning of a longer discussion on healthcare. And the thing which to me is positive about this, it shouldn't be partisan. This should be about people's health, and let's hope that the other side doesn't make it partisan.
What has been the response from West Virginia so far to these actions?
I think so far so good. Now I'm day 4 in, so we'll see what happens, how people respond. But mostly people have been very positive and saying thank you for putting it up. And they know that, look, you put yourself out there, you're at risk. And I know I was thinking to myself, all right, the last time I was doing this, I have an old foot injury, right? And, I was off the walking trail for a few months. You got to stay healthy. But this is what every West Virginian has to deal with. And we just have to power through it. So mostly the reaction has been very, very positive, and we're going to keep doing it.
Governor Morrisey, really appreciate your time, what you're doing for West Virginians, taking the lead in this direction for healthy Americans and healthy West Virginians. So thank you for taking time to sit down with us here and address these issues.
Lyndsay, it's great to see you. Thank you. Come back again, and you'll see further developments into the future. I think West Virginia's really poised to lead the way, and people are going to watch. This is our comeback. You're going to see it in healthcare. You're going to see it on economics, standard of living, on energy, on education, across the board. This is going to be different than what people have thought about our state in the past.
Yeah, you're definitely changing the dynamics of West Virginia. Governor, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lyndsay.